I came home 4 days early from an overseas trip expecting an empty house. Instead, a dark sedan sat outside, and unfamiliar voices drifted from upstairs. My granddaughter froze the moment she saw me. She rushed down, grabbed my arm, and whispered, "Grandpa, don't go upstairs." "Why, who's up there?" I asked. She glanced nervously toward the landing. "Mom, Dad, and some man. They don't know you're home." I motioned for her to stay quiet and crept toward the stairs. Then the stranger said something that stopped me cold. "I'm so grateful you're here with me today on Revenge, Dad. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching? From your city, your state, your country? I'd love to know. And if this story speaks to you, stay with me until the end. This story contains fictional elements for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual names or places is coincidental, but the message is something worth carrying. The taxi smelled like pine air freshener and old leather, and I had been sitting in the back seat for 20 minutes with a box of Swiss chocolate balanced on my knee and a carry-on wedged between my feet. I had bought the chocolate at the San Francisco airport, a flat gold box with a red ribbon that Sophie would tear open before I even finished saying hello. That was the plan anyway. Show up 4 days early, let her scream and laugh and throw her arms around my neck the way she still did even at 15, even when her friends were watching. It was the kind of moment I had been looking forward to for 6 weeks. The driver turned onto my street and I felt the particular loosening in my chest that only comes from being almost home. After 40 years of engineering contracts and site inspections and conference rooms that smelled like burned coffee, I still got that feeling every single time. The house had belonged to Eleanor and me since 1989. We had painted every room together. We had replaced the roof twice. We had stood in the driveway the morning after a winter storm and counted 7 broken roof tiles and laughed because what else could you do? The house was paid off the year before she got sick. I used to think that was good timing. Now I mostly tried not to think about timing at all. "Is this the one?" the driver asked, slowing at the corner. "Third house on the left," I said. "The craftsman with the blue shutters." He pulled up to the curb and I reached for the door handle. Then I stopped. There were 2 vehicles in my driveway that did not belong there. One was Claire's silver Lexus RX, which I recognized immediately. The other was a dark sedan with a Los Angeles County plate that I had never seen before in my life. I sat there with my hand on the door handle and looked at those 2 cars the way I used to look at a load-bearing calculation that did not add up. Something was off. I just did not know what yet. "Sir," the driver said. "1 second. I paid him, climbed out and stood on the sidewalk with my carry-on and my box of chocolate and the kind of stillness that comes when your instincts are running faster than your thoughts. I had given Claire a house key years ago, after Eleanor passed. She used it to water the plants on the back porch to check the mail when I traveled to make sure nothing had gone wrong while I was away. I had never once questioned that arrangement. I had never needed to. I walked up the driveway slowly, and my eyes moved to the garage. The door was up about 2 feet the way I sometimes left it for ventilation. I crouched down and looked inside. The boxes stopped me cold. There were at least 20 of them stacked along the far wall and piled near the workbench. Large cardboard moving boxes, the kind you get from U-Haul, with words written across the sides in the thick black marker. I tilted my head and read the nearest one. Claire Master Closet. The one beside it said, Derek Home Office. A third one near the back said Kitchen Claire. My chest tightened so fast I had to press one hand flat against the garage wall to steady myself. Claire and Derek lived in a 2-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from here. They had lived there for 4 years. Neither of them had said a single word to me about moving about storage, about needing extra space. Not a word in 6 weeks of phone calls and text messages and video chats from a hotel room in San Francisco. I lowered the garage door quietly and went in through the back entrance with my key. The kitchen light was off. The living room was dark except for the pale amber glow that came down from the second floor. I stood in the hallway and let my eyes adjust, and the first thing I noticed was the corner by the front window. Eleanor's reading chair was gone. She had bought that chair at an estate sale in Laguna Beach the summer after we got married. Green velvet carved wooden feet, a little worn on the right armrest, from years of her sitting with her legs tucked under her and a paperback open in her lap. I had moved it twice when we rearranged the living room, complained both times about how heavy it was, and never once considered getting rid of it. It had been in that corner for 34 years. Now there was nothing there but a faint rectangular impression in the carpet. I turned toward the shelves beside the fireplace. The two framed photographs that had stood there since the mid-90s, one of Eleanor and me at the Grand Canyon, and one of Claire at her college graduation, were gone as well. There were pale squares on the wood where the frames had blocked the light for so long the shelf had darkened around them. My throat went tight. My hands curled at my sides. I stood there in my own living room and felt something cold settle into my stomach, something that had no name yet, but that I recognized the way you recognize the first vibration in a structure before anyone else hears anything wrong. From somewhere above me came the low, steady sound of a man's voice. Not Derek's voice, someone else. The words were too muffled to catch, but the cadence was clipped and deliberate, the voice of someone conducting a meeting rather than visiting a friend. I set the chocolate box down on the kitchen counter and reached for my phone to call Claire. My thumb was already moving across the screen when I heard the footsteps at the top of the stairs. I looked up. Sophie was standing on the landing, one hand gripping the banister, wearing her school sweatshirt, and the expression of someone who had just seen something come through the door that she did not know how to explain. Her eyes were wide and very still. She did not move. She did not call out. She just stared at me the way you stare at something that shouldn't be there. Every other time I had walked through that door, Sophie had come down those stairs at a dead run. She was 15 years old and nearly as tall as her mother, but she had never once outgrown the habit of launching herself at me like she was 7. She would grab my arm or squeeze my shoulder and start talking before I could even put my bag down, telling me about school or a show she was watching or something ridiculous her friend had said in the cafeteria. This time she looked over her shoulder toward the hallway behind her. Then she looked back at me. Then she came down the stairs quickly, almost soundlessly, and stopped 2 steps from the bottom, close enough that I could see her jaw was tight and her knuckles were white against the banister railing. "Grandpa!" she whispered, her voice so low I had to lean forward to catch it. "Don't go up." I looked at Sophie for a long moment. Her fingers were still wrapped around the banister knuckles, pale, and her chest was rising and falling faster than it should have been, for a girl who had just walked down a flight of stairs. She was frightened. Not the ordinary frightened of a teenager caught doing something she shouldn't. This was different. This was the look of someone who had been sitting with a secret that was too heavy to carry alone and had just watched it walk through the front door. "How many people are up there?" I asked, keeping my voice just above a breath. "3, she whispered. "Mom and Dad and a man I don't know." "How long have they been up there?" "Since before dinner." She swallowed hard, her throat moving visibly. "Grandpa, I don't know what they're talking about. They told me to stay downstairs. Dad locked the office door." I nodded slowly. Then I did something that surprised her. I sat down on the bottom step, unlaced my shoes, and set them quietly beside the wall. Sophie watched me with her eyes wide, her lower lip pressed tight between her teeth, like she was trying to hold something back. "Stay here," I said. "Grandpa, right here. Don't move, don't call out." I held her gaze until she gave me a small, tight nod. Our house was a 2-story craftsman and I had lived in it for 36 years. I knew every inch of it the way a person knows their own body, the way you know, without looking where the light switch is in the dark. I knew that the 4th step from the bottom creaked under pressure on the left side, but held quiet on the right. I knew the 7th step was solid no matter where you stepped. I knew the landing made no sound at all if you stayed close to the wall. 40 years of engineering had given me a professional appreciation for structural behavior under stress. I had been walking those stairs since before Claire was born. I moved up slowly right side of each step, one hand barely touching the wall for balance. The voices grew clearer as I climbed. By the time I reached the landing and pressed myself against the wall beside the office door, I could hear every word. The man I did not recognize spoke first. His voice was smooth and unhurried, the practiced calm of someone who spent a great deal of time in rooms where money was being discussed. "What you sent to Calder was revision 6, he said. "The engineering team has already reviewed it. That version is nearly 2 years old, and frankly it shows. The company will not release the 2nd installment for a design that has been sitting on a shelf since the year before last." Calder. The name hit me like a hand pressed flat against my sternum. Calder Marine Systems was a Los Angeles-based equipment manufacturer that had been competing with firms I consulted for throughout my career. They built cranes hoisting rigs load transfer systems for commercial ports. They were exactly the kind of company that would pay a great deal of money for a working prototype of what I had spent 7 years building in my workshop. Derek's voice came back hard and defensive. I gave your people the full drawing set, the load test documentation, and the engineering notebook. That's everything I had access to. What exactly is it you think you're entitled to? V9, the man said, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. V9 was the name I had given the ninth and current version of my self-balancing locking joint system, a device designed to stabilize heavy crane assemblies on ship decks and port berths under variable load conditions. I had been developing it across 9 iterations over 7 years. Version 6 had been the first version I believed had genuine commercial potential, but it suffered from resonant vibration under high load. Version 7 and 8 addressed the damping system and load distribution. Version 9, the version I had just finished testing in San Francisco, 4 days ahead of schedule, had cleared every threshold I had set for it. No one outside that workshop knew the name V9. I had never written it in an email. I had never said it on a phone call. The only record of it existed in my private engineering notebooks, my load test documentation, and the locked filing cabinet in my workshop. The version he took to San Francisco, the man continued. That is what Calder is prepared to pay for. That is what the second installment covers, not a 2-year-old iteration that your own people couldn't bring to market. There was a pause, and then I heard my daughter's voice, Claire's voice. She spoke with the relaxed, reasonable tone of someone who had rehearsed what she was going to say and was satisfied with how it was landing. He's not back for another 4 days. We still have time to find what you need. My right hand pressed flat against the wall, and I felt the plaster cool and solid beneath my palm, and I concentrated on that sensation with everything I had because it was the only thing keeping me from moving. I had been braced to hear Derek. I had been half prepared in the part of my mind that still hoped I was misreading the situation to tell myself that Claire didn't know that she was somewhere else in the house, that she had no idea what her husband was doing in my office with a stranger. That hope dissolved the moment I heard her voice coming through that door. Steady. Calm. She knew. She had always known. I pressed my back teeth together and kept listening. The notebook your husband provided covered test data through version 6, the smooth-voiced man said. He had to be Voss. Raymond Voss? The name Derek had used in one of his messages, a name I had passed along to Margaret Holt when I retained her to handle my intellectual property filings. Calder's engineers can work backward from that data to understand the foundational principles, but the refinements in version 9 represent a fundamentally different load transfer architecture. Without the current documentation, what they have is an incomplete picture. We're working on it, Derek said, and I heard the tight frustration in his voice, the sound of a man who had promised something he was not sure he could deliver. Then Claire spoke again, and what she said made the hair on my arm stand up. I've already spoken with Aunt Diane and a few of Eleanor's friends from the garden club. They've noticed changes in him over the past year. The forgetfulness, the mood shifts, the way he gets frustrated over small things. She paused. If we have supporting documentation from a medical professional and video footage of an episode, the petition becomes much easier to substantiate. Petition. I understood exactly what she meant. Under California's probate code, a family member can file a petition for conservatorship of an elder's estate, which, if granted by the court, gives the petitioner legal authority to manage that person's finances and assets. It is a process designed to protect vulnerable adults. In the wrong hands, it is a mechanism for stripping a person of everything they own. To file successfully, the petitioner needs medical documentation, establishing cognitive decline, and ideally behavioral evidence of the subject's inability to manage their own affairs. The video camera in my bedroom was not a security measure. It was a trap. They had moved Eleanor's chair. They had taken down her photographs. They had rearranged a room I had shared with my wife for 30 years. And they were waiting for me to walk through the door and react the way any man would react when he finds that the traces of his dead wife have been erased from his own home. They wanted the footage. They wanted to stand in a courtroom and say, "Look at him. Look at how he behaves," and have 12 people believe that the man in the video was not grieving but deteriorating. My jaw ached from how hard I was clenching it. I could feel my pulse in my temples, a hard, rhythmic pressure that I had to breathe through deliberately, the way I breathe through a bad weld inspection or a failed stress test, because the alternative was to kick that door open, and I could not do that. Not yet. Not without understanding everything first. A small hand touched my wrist from behind. Sophie had come up the stairs without a sound. She was standing one step below the landing, her fingers wrapped around my wrist, and when I looked down at her, I saw that her eyes were wet and her chin was trembling, and she was shaking her head slowly from side to side. She had heard enough. She did not know what Calder was, or what V9 meant, or what a conservatorship petition involved, but she knew her mother's voice, and she knew what was being planned, and she was standing on the stairs of her grandfather's house with tears running silently down her face, asking him without a single word not to go through that door. "Please," she whispered the word barely a sound at all. I looked at my granddaughter's face. Then I looked at the door. Then I took one slow breath and turned around and walked back down the stairs. Sophie was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, exactly where I had told her to stay. When I came down and she saw my face, her own face crumpled for just a moment before she pulled it back together, the way teenagers do when they are trying very hard to seem older than they feel. Her eyes were still red at the rims. She had wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her sweatshirt, but the skin there was still faintly damp. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it in the only way that mattered right then, which was that my hands were steady and my mind was clear, and I was not going to do anything in the next 30 seconds that I could not take back. "Put your shoes on. We're going to Mr. Calloway's house." She blinked. "Right now?" "Right now." Quietly. She didn't argue. That was one of the things I had always loved about Sophie. She had an instinct for when questions would cost more than they were worth. She slipped her sneakers on, without tying the laces, and grabbed her jacket from the hook by the back door. I reached back and picked up the chocolate box from the kitchen counter. I was not going to leave a gold-ribboned box from a San Francisco airport sitting in plain sight, and 2 minutes after I had come back down those stairs, we were outside in the cool October air walking toward the street. Frank Calloway lived 4 houses down, on the same block in a pale yellow bungalow, with a fig tree in the front yard that dropped fruit on the sidewalk every September, without fail. He was 71 years old, a widower like me, and he had spent 30 years practicing maritime law in Newport Beach before his knees gave him sufficient excuse to retire. We had been neighbors for 22 years. We had argued about baseball, shared a workbench on more than one occasion, and sat together in a hospital waiting room the night Eleanor's diagnosis came back. He was the kind of man who did not need a situation explained to him before he understood that it was serious. I rang the bell at 10:45 in the evening. The porch light came on. The door opened and Frank stood there in his reading glasses and a flannel shirt holding a paperback with his thumb marking the page, and he took one look at my face and one look at Sophie standing behind me with her jacket half on and her laces still untied, and he stepped back and held the door open without saying a single word. "Can she stay here tonight?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "I'll explain everything tomorrow. Right now I stopped, pressed 2 fingers against my mouth for a moment, then lowered my hand. "I need an hour." Frank looked at me steadily over the top of his glasses. "Take whatever you need. Sophie, come in. I think there's still some of that apple cake your grandfather brought over last month." Sophie looked at me. I gave her a small nod. She went inside and Frank pulled the door nearly shut behind her, leaving it open just a crack, and stepped out onto the porch with me. "How bad?" he asked quietly. "Bad enough," I said. "I'll tell you everything tomorrow." He nodded once, no follow-up questions, no performance of concern. That was Frank. He put his hand briefly on my shoulder, squeezed once, and went back inside. I walked back toward the main road and called for a car. While I waited, I stood on the sidewalk under a pepper tree and looked down the block at my house. The second-floor light was still on. The dark sedan was still in the driveway. Somewhere up in that office, 3 people were discussing how to dismantle the last 30 years of my working life, and none of them had any idea that I had been standing 12 inches from that door less than an hour ago. The car arrived, I climbed in. I waited until we had turned 2 corners before I took out my phone and called Claire. She picked up on the second ring. "Dad, I thought you'd already be asleep. How's everything going up there?" Her voice was warm, easy, the particular warmth of someone who is very good at sounding exactly the way they are supposed to sound. My chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with the physical, a dull pressing ache just behind my sternum that I suspected would be with me for a long time. "Still a few things to wrap up," I said, keeping my voice level and a little tired, which required no effort at all because I was exhausted in every direction. "Looks like I'll be up here through the weekend. Didn't want you to worry if you couldn't reach me." "Oh, that's totally fine," she said, and I heard her shift on what sounded like a cushion or a couch. My couch, I realized. She was sitting on my furniture in my living room. "Take all the time you need. The house is fine. I checked on the plants yesterday. Good, I said. Tell Sophie I'll bring her something from the airport. She'll love that. She's been asking about you. A small laugh. You know how she is. I do, I said, and I had to stop there because there was more truth in those two words than I could safely fit into a phone call. Get some sleep, sweetheart. I'll check in tomorrow. You too, Dad. Love you. Love you too. I ended the call and sat with the phone in my lap, and the city moving past the windows and the ache behind my sternum spreading slowly outward like a crack, working its way through a load-bearing joint. She had said it so easily. Love you. The same two words she had said to me at the end of every phone call since she was old enough to talk. I used to believe that words like that were immune to everything, that they existed in a separate category from the rest of what people did and said and chose. I was beginning to understand that I had been wrong about that. The hotel was a small place, 6 blocks from my house, the kind of establishment that catered to visiting contractors and business travelers, clean and anonymous, and exactly what I needed. I paid for 2 nights with a credit card Claire had no knowledge of, and took the key to a room on the 2nd floor. I sat down at the small desk by the window, took out a notepad from my bag, and uncapped a pen. Then I began to write. Not feelings, not grievances. I wrote the way I had written for 40 years whenever I encountered a system that was behaving in ways I did not yet understand. I wrote names, connections, and sequences. I wrote what I had heard word for word, as precisely as I could recall it. I wrote what I had seen in the garage and the living room and the workshop entrance. I wrote the name Raymond Voss and drew a line connecting it to Calder Marine Systems. I wrote Claire's name and drew a line to Derek's name and another line to Voss. I wrote conservatorship petition, and beside it, I wrote medical documentation, needed behavioral evidence, needed video footage needed. Then I sat back and looked at what I had written. This was not a spontaneous act of greed. This had been planned. The moving boxes had been accumulating for weeks. The conversations with Aunt Diane and Eleanor's garden club friends had happened before I left for San Francisco. The camera in the bedroom had been installed and tested. The contact with Calder Marine had been established, and was already in a negotiation phase with a second installment on the table. Every element of what I had walked into tonight had been constructed carefully over time by people who knew my schedule, my habits, my access codes, and the precise emotional geography of what would break me fastest. They had chosen Eleanor's things because they knew that was the shortest distance between me and losing control. I set down the pen. Outside the window, the lights of Newport Beach spread out toward the ocean, and somewhere in that grid of light was my house. And somewhere in my house was a camera pointing at an empty room waiting. I picked the pen back up. I still had 4 days before anyone expected me home, and a man who knows exactly how a system was built is usually the one best positioned to take it apart. I was back on my street by 7:15 the following morning. I had slept in 2-hour intervals the way I always slept, when something was unresolved, waking each time with the same tight awareness behind my eyes that told me the problem was still there and still waiting. By 6 I had given up on sleep, entirely showered and eaten a granola bar from the vending machine in the hotel corridor. By 7, I was in a rideshare heading toward Newport Beach with my notepad in my jacket pocket and a cup of gas station coffee going cold in my hand. I had Claire's number pulled up on my phone, and I watched the map on the driver's screen as we moved through the neighborhood. When I saw the silver Lexus back out of my driveway and turn left toward the main road, I felt the muscles across my shoulders release a fraction. I waited another 10 minutes in the car at the corner, watching. The dark sedan left 4 minutes later, heading in the opposite direction. I paid the driver, climbed out, and walked to my own front door with my own key. The house was quiet in the specific way that houses are quiet when they have been occupied by people who are not their owners. There was a particular wrongness to it, like a note played slightly off pitch. Dishes in the drying rack that I did not own. A half-empty bottle of red wine on the kitchen counter that I had not opened. The faint chemical smell of a plug-in air freshener somewhere near the hallway. The artificial lavender kind that Eleanor had always called department store flowers. I did not linger in the kitchen. I went straight upstairs. The door to my bedroom was open. I stepped inside and stood very still just past the threshold, and I looked at everything with the same methodical patience I had trained into myself over 4 decades of reading what machines were telling me when they did not behave the way their designers intended. The bed had been pushed 18 inches from the wall on Eleanor's side, the right side. The nightstand was gone, entirely replaced by a cardboard box labeled Derek Bedside. My clothes had been removed from the closet and folded into two large plastic storage bins pushed against the far wall, as though someone had decided that the space now served a different purpose and had acted on that decision without bothering to inform me. The framed wedding photograph that had hung above the dresser for 31 years was gone. So was the small watercolor of the Oregon coast that Eleanor had bought at a street fair in Cannon Beach the summer before Sophie was born. The walls were bare in a way that made the room feel gutted, stripped of the particular accumulated weight of a life shared over decades. And there on the far side of the dresser, half hidden behind the corner of the frame, was the camera. It was a small white device no larger than a deck of cards plugged into the wall socket behind the dresser. A Wise Cam, the kind you could order online for $30 and set up in under 5 minutes. Its lens was angled toward the center of the room, toward the bed, toward the empty wall where Eleanor's photograph had hung. I did not touch it. I took out my phone and photographed it from 3 different angles, then photographed the room itself, working around the perimeter, methodically capturing the displaced bed, the bare walls, the storage bins, the missing nightstand. I photographed the pale rectangular shadows on the wallpaper. Where the frames had blocked the light for so long, the paper had darkened around them. Those shadows were the most honest things in the room. They showed exactly what had been there and exactly what had been taken. I went back downstairs and out through the kitchen to the workshop. The workshop occupied the back section of the property, a separate structure connected to the house by a short covered walkway. I had built it out in stages over 15 years, adding a proper ventilation system in the second phase and a reinforced concrete floor in the third, when the equipment got heavy enough to warrant it. The door had a commercial-grade deadbolt that I had installed myself 8 years ago. I had given Claire a key to the house. I had never given her a key to this door. The deadbolt was locked. The door showed no signs of forced entry, no scratched finish around the keyhole, no damage to the frame, which meant the key had come from inside the house. I kept a spare workshop key in the top drawer of the kitchen utility cabinet behind the takeout menus and the backup batteries in a small labeled envelope that I had not looked at in years because I had never needed to. Claire had been in that kitchen. Claire had known where things were kept since she was a child. She had found the envelope and used what was inside it, and she had put it back because she was careful and because leaving traces was not part of the plan. I unlocked the door and went in. The workshop smelled like machine oil and aluminum shavings and the particular dry warmth of equipment that has been running for years. I stood in the doorway and looked at the room before I touched anything, reading it the way you read a site after something has gone wrong, looking for the thing that was different from how you left it. The main filing cabinet was in the far corner. I crossed to it and pulled open the second drawer, where I kept the bound drawing sets for each version of the locking joint system, organized chronologically from V1 through the current work. Each set was held together with a binder clip. In 40 years of engineering practice, I had developed one firm personal habit regarding filed documents. Every binder clip on every document I filed was oriented with the flat spine facing left. It was not a rule I had ever articulated to anyone. It was simply what I did the same way some people always hung their keys on the same hook or parked in the same corner of a lot. It was automatic, consistent, and entirely invisible to anyone who had not spent years working alongside me. 3 of the bound sets in the drawer had their binder clips facing right. I lifted the first one, version 5. I turned through the pages, slowly checking each sheet against the index tab. Nothing was missing. I did the same with version 6. Nothing missing. Whoever had gone through these sets had been careful. They had photographed them page by page, most likely using a phone, and then reassembled them and returned them to the drawer. They had almost gotten it right. I checked the bottom drawer. The engineering notebook was gone. It was a standard black hardcover notebook, the composition kind, 8.5 by 11, with my name and the project designation written on the inside, cover in permanent marker. It contained handwritten load test records from version 3 through version 6, including force measurements, failure points, modification notes, and iteration rationale going back 4.5 years. It did not contain anything related to version 9. The version 9 data existed only in a separate encrypted file on my laptop and in my own memory, but the notebook represented hundreds of hours of foundational work, and a skilled engineering team with access to that data could reconstruct a meaningful portion of the developmental logic behind the current design. I stood in the workshop with the empty drawer open in front of me and pressed my hand flat against the top of the cabinet and breathed slowly through my nose. Then I went to the garage. The 23 boxes were still there. I had counted them the night before through the gap in the garage door, but in daylight with the light fully on, they were more confronting. They occupied nearly a third of the garage floor space. Derek's work desk had been assembled in the corner near the window, a cheap flat-pack unit with a monitor arm already bolted to the top. In the storage cabinet along the east wall, I found 2 rows of Claire's clothing on hangers organized by color in the way she had organized her closet since she was a teenager. They were not storing things here temporarily. There was no version of this that was temporary. They had moved in. They had looked at my house and decided it was going to become their house, and they had begun the process of making that true while I was in San Francisco. And the only question that remained was exactly how far they had gotten before I came home. I locked the workshop, locked the garage, and walked back inside. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, looking at the bottle of wine on the counter, and the dishes in the rack and the plug-in air freshener, throwing its artificial lavender into my kitchen air. Then I picked up my phone and sent a text to Frank. Need to talk. Bring Sophie over to yours this afternoon if she can. I'll explain everything. I walked out the back door and locked it behind me, and I did not look back at the house because I already knew everything it was going to tell me. Sophie was sitting at Frank's kitchen table when I arrived that afternoon, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot chocolate that Frank had clearly made to give her something to do with her hands. She looked up when I came in, and the relief that crossed her face was so raw and unguarded that it hit me somewhere in the vicinity of my ribs and stayed there. She had been sitting with whatever she knew since the night before alone in Frank's guest room, and the weight of it showed in the shadows under her eyes, and the way she held her shoulders tight and slightly raised like someone bracing for impact. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, pulling out the chair across from her. "Hey!" Her voice came out smaller than usual. She set the mug down and folded her hands on the table. "Are you going to tell me what's happening?" "Some of it," I said. "The parts you need to know." Frank set a cup of black coffee in front of me and settled into the chair at the head of the table, quiet and present in the way that only people who have spent decades in courtrooms learn to be. He did not take notes. He did not interrupt. He simply folded his hands and listened, which was exactly what I needed him to do. I looked at Sophie. "I need you to tell me what you've seen at the house. Not what you think it means, just what you saw and heard. Start from the beginning." She took a breath that shuddered slightly at the top. Then she began. "It had started about 3 weeks before I left for San Francisco," she said. Her parents had told her the apartment needed work, something with the plumbing in the main bathroom, a pipe that had been leaking into the wall. They said it would take a couple of weeks to fix, and they needed somewhere to stay in the meantime. Could they use Grandpa's house? I had already said yes, apparently. Her mother had told her that I had offered the house before I flew out, that I had said it was sitting empty anyway, and they might as well use it. "She said you offered?" Sophie repeated, watching my face carefully. "I offered the house as a place to check in on and water the plants," I said. "I didn't offer it as a place to live." Sophie's jaw tightened. "I didn't think it sounded right," she said. "But Mom got upset when I asked about it. She said I was being difficult," she went on. After the first week, the story about the plumbing stopped coming up. Instead, her mother began talking about staying longer, about how the apartment was smaller than they needed, about how it made more sense for the family to be together. Her father had started setting up his desk in the garage. Sophie had heard her mother on the phone one evening, standing in the hallway outside the master bedroom, saying something about how the room would need to be repainted before they settled in properly. "She called it the master," Sophie said, and her voice went tight and thin. "She said the master needs a little work before we settle in, like it was already hers." She pressed her lips together hard, her chin trembling for just a moment before she steadied it. "That's Grandma Eleanor's room. It's always been Grandma Eleanor's room." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. She turned her hand over and held on. "What else?" I asked gently. Sophie told me about the conversations with relatives. Her mother had called Aunt Diane twice in the weeks before I left, she said, and she had overheard parts of both calls. The word she kept hearing was concerned. Her mother was concerned about Grandpa. He had been more forgetful lately. He had been short-tempered. He had said some things that didn't quite make sense. Aunt Diane had apparently agreed that she had noticed changes too, though Sophie could only hear her mother's side of those calls and couldn't be sure what Diane had actually said. I told Mom that wasn't true. Sophie said, her voice rising slightly, two bright spots of color appearing on her cheeks. I told her you were completely fine, that you remembered everything, that you were sharp as anything. She told me I was too young to understand what cognitive decline looked like in older people. Sophie's free hand curled into a fist on the table. She said it like I was 5 years old, like I didn't know you at all. Frank cleared his throat softly. I glanced at him, and he gave me a small nod, which meant, keep going. This matters. Sophie, I said, did you ever hear either of your parents mention a doctor, someone they were planning to contact? She went very still. Her eyes searched my face for a moment, trying to understand why I was asking. Then she pulled her phone out of her pocket. Yeah, she said slowly. About a week before you left. Dad was on the phone in the study and I heard him say a name, Dr. Rohn, and he said something about a preliminary assessment. She looked up at me. I didn't know what that meant, so I Googled it that night in my room. She turned her phone around and showed me the screen. She had searched the phrase preliminary cognitive assessment, and then, in a separate search, Dr. Philip Rohn, Neuropsychiatry, Irvine, California. The search had returned a professional profile and a clinic address. My stomach dropped the same way it had dropped the night before on the landing outside my office door. I kept my face neutral with considerable effort, the way I had learned to keep it neutral during 40 years of delivering bad news about structural failures and cost overruns. Because Sophie was already frightened enough, and I was not going to add to it. Frank, however, had gone very still in his chair. He reached across and took Sophie's phone, read the screen, and set it back down. He looked at me over his reading glasses with an expression I recognized from the one time I had seen him in an actual courtroom 30 years ago, when the opposing counsel had said something that was both outrageous and completely admissible. Do you want me to explain this to her? He asked. I'll do it, I said. I turned back to Sophie. A conservatorship is a legal process. In California, a family member can ask a court to grant them authority over another person's financial decisions if they can show that the person is no longer able to manage their own affairs. To do that, they typically need a doctor to provide written documentation, a medical assessment saying that the person has cognitive problems, memory loss, confusion, difficulty reasoning. I paused. Dr. Rohn is a neuropsychologist. Your father appears to have contacted him about providing that kind of assessment for me. Sophie stared at me. The color drained from her cheeks so quickly I actually leaned forward slightly, ready to catch her if she needed it. They were going to tell a court that you have dementia, she whispered. They were going to try to build a case, I said carefully. Whether they would have succeeded is a different question. Frank can speak to that better than I can. Frank laced his fingers together on the table. A California conservatorship petition requires independent evaluation by a court-appointed investigator and a licensed physician. He said, his voice level and precise, the courtroom voice that he still hadn't quite lost after 11 years of retirement. The petitioner's chosen doctor carries some weight in the initial filing, but the court doesn't simply take their word for it. Anyone contesting a petition, and Walter would contest it immediately, is entitled to their own medical evaluation. Given that Walter is in excellent cognitive health, a contest would almost certainly succeed. He looked at me. What they were really building wasn't a legal case. It was a pressure campaign, social pressure, family pressure. Make enough people believe there's something wrong, and the target starts to question their own standing. Sophie's eyes had filled. She was blinking very fast, pressing the back of her wrist against her mouth, trying to hold something in that was clearly pushing hard to get out. Her shoulders were shaking with the effort of it. Sophie, I said. The dam broke. She pressed both hands over her face, and her whole body shook with the force of the sobs she had been holding back since the night before. Great heaving breaths that she tried to muffle behind her palms, while her ponytail swung forward and her elbows hit the table, and Frank quietly got up and brought a box of tissues from the counter and set it beside her without a word. I moved my chair around the table and put my arm around her shoulders and held on while she cried, her face pressed into my jacket, her hands fisting in the fabric. I held her and looked at the wall above Frank's kitchen window and breathed steadily because one of us had to. You didn't do anything wrong, I said when the shaking had quieted a little. Not one single thing. You heard something you didn't understand and you came and found me. That was exactly right. She pulled back enough to look at me, her face blotchy and wet, her eyes swollen. What are you going to do? I reached over and pulled a tissue from the box Frank had left and handed it to her. I'm going to take care of it, I said. That's all you need to know." She searched my face for a long moment. Then she gave me a single watery nod and pressed the tissue to her eyes. Under the table, I had my other hand wrapped around the edge of my chair so hard my knuckles ached. I was taking care of it. I just needed to make one more phone call first. Frank gave me the name before I even asked. We were standing on his front porch after Sophie had gone to lie down in the guest room, the October air carrying the faint salt smell of the ocean 3 blocks west, and he said, "There's a woman in Irvine you should call, Margaret Holt. She does intellectual property and trade secret work. I've referred 2 clients to her over the years, and both of them came out the other side in better shape than they went in." He paused. "She doesn't waste time." "Neither do I said. Margaret Holt picked up on the 3rd ring. I told her who I was, that Frank Calloway had given me her name, and that I needed 30 minutes of her time on a matter involving misappropriation of proprietary engineering documentation. She said she had 45 minutes before her next call and asked me to start from the beginning. I told her everything. I spoke the way I wrote my engineering reports sequentially, without editorializing with specific details, where specific details existed. By the time I finished, I heard the sound of keys clicking on her endnotes being typed, and then a brief pause. "What you're describing falls squarely under the California Uniform Trade Secrets Act," she said. Her voice was crisp and precise. A woman who had learned that clarity saved everyone time. CUTSA covers the misappropriation of trade secrets, which includes acquiring, disclosing, or using proprietary information through improper means. The drawings, the load test data, the notebook if those were taken without your consent, and provided to a third party for commercial advantage, that's a textbook case. Another pause. "Have you begun any formal patent documentation for the version 9 design?" "I filed a provisional application 18 months ago," I said. "The non-provisional is in progress." "Good. That establishes a priority date and puts the design under federal protection while we build out the trade secret claim on the underlying data." I heard more typing. "I want you to send me everything you photographed this morning. The camera in the bedroom, the displaced documents, the garage inventory. All of it. I'll begin drafting a cease and desist letter for Calder Marine Systems, and we'll get the patent filing accelerated. How soon can you get that to me?" "Tonight," I said. "Then we're already moving," she said. "One more thing. The conservatorship angle, I want you to understand that it's a much weaker threat than it probably feels right now. California courts don't hand over control of a person's estate based on a family member's word and a friendly doctor's note. They appoint independent investigators. They require independent medical evaluation. You contest the petition, you present yourself to an independent evaluator, and it collapses. What they're really doing is building social pressure, not legal pressure. Don't let them make you feel more cornered than you actually are." Those words settled somewhere in my chest and stayed there. I had needed to hear them from someone who knew the law well enough to mean them. I thanked her, ended the call, and stood on Frank's porch for another minute with the phone warm in my hand and the ocean air moving through the pepper trees along the street. Then I went back to work. I returned to the house that evening when I was certain it was empty. I moved through the workshop, quickly pulling the file drawer open and removing the bound drawing sets with my gloved hands. I set them aside. Then I sat at my workbench and spent 40 minutes assembling a document package from materials I had kept in the archive cabinet, load test schematics from version 5, incomplete force distribution tables from version 6, a set of configuration diagrams representing approaches I had tested and rejected 2 years before because they introduced exactly the kind of resonant vibration that had made V6 commercially unviable. I organized them carefully. I added a cover sheet. At the top, in the clean block lettering I had used on engineering documents for 4 decades, I printed V9 Final Load Test Documentation, San Francisco. It looked exactly like what it claimed to be, to anyone who did not already know what V9 actually contained. I carried it to my study, opened the safe, and placed it inside. The combination was Eleanor's birthday, the month and day and year. She was born a number I had set when we first bought the safe and never once changed. Claire had grown up watching me open that safe. She knew the combination the same way she knew which drawer I kept the flashlight in and which shelf held the spare house keys. I closed the safe and turned the dial and stepped back. The security camera I had installed at the workshop entrance 14 months ago was a compact weatherproof unit mounted under the eave above the door. Claire did not know it was there. I had replaced the older model quietly without mentioning it, because the older model had developed a connectivity issue, and I had not wanted to deal with questions about whether I was capable of handling a simple hardware upgrade. I checked the angle, confirmed the lens, covered the full approach to the workshop door, and verified that the memory card had enough remaining capacity for several days of continuous recording. I locked the workshop, walked back through the covered passage to the house, and stood in the kitchen for a moment in the dark. Somewhere in this house, there was a camera pointing at an empty room, waiting for me to walk in and give them what they needed. I had spent the last 24 hours listening, photographing, documenting, and building a legal file with one of the best trade secret attorneys in Orange County. I had placed a piece of carefully constructed bait exactly where they would find it. Through the office door, Thursday night, I had heard Voss tell Derek that the second installment was contingent on receiving the current version and that Calder's team was already waiting. Whoever was managing the handoff was already behind schedule. They would move fast. Now, I needed to see who reached for it first. If you're still here with me on Revenge Dad, I need to know. Drop the number 7 in the comments right now. Because what I'm about to show you next completely changed everything I thought I knew about my own daughter. Stay with me. Heads up, portions of this story include fictional elements built for educational purposes. If that's not your thing, no hard feelings, feel free to step away at any time. I checked the camera footage at 8:45 on Saturday morning, sitting at the small desk in my hotel room, with a cup of coffee going cold beside the laptop, and the curtains half open onto a sky the color of old pewter. The camera at the workshop entrance recorded continuously and uploaded to a private cloud account that I had set up when I installed the unit 14 months ago. I logged in, pulled up the previous 24 hours of footage, and began scrolling through at 4 times the normal speed, watching the empty gravel path outside the workshop door blur past in fast forward. Trash collection truck at 7:15 Friday morning. A neighbor's cat crossing the frame at 11:40. Nothing else until just past 9 Saturday morning. Then the footage slowed in my hands because my hands had stopped moving. A figure appeared at the left edge of the frame, walking toward the workshop door with a particular unhurried stride of someone who had every right to be exactly where they were. Not Derek's broad-shouldered, slightly forward-leaning walk. Not the careful, deliberate step of someone who knew they were doing something wrong. Claire. She was wearing a dark jacket and carrying her large canvas tote bag over one shoulder, the one she used for grocery runs and farmers market trips and all the small, ordinary errands of a normal Saturday morning. She reached the workshop door, took a key from her jacket pocket, and unlocked the deadbolt in one practice motion. No hesitation, no pause to look over her shoulder. She pushed the door open and went inside. 4 minutes and 38 seconds later, she came back out. The tote bag was visibly heavier on her shoulder than it had been when she went in. She locked the door behind her, dropped the key back into her jacket pocket, and walked out of the frame the same way she had entered it. Unhurried, certain, like a woman running a Saturday errand. I set the laptop down on the desk. I picked up the coffee cup, set it back down without drinking from it, stood up and walked to the window, and looked out at the parking lot and the row of palm trees along the service road and the pale gray sky pressing down over all of it. I had spent the previous 36 hours telling myself in the careful, methodical way that I manage most things I did not want to face directly, that there was still a version of this in which Claire had been pulled into something she did not fully understand, that Derek had moved faster than she knew, that she was frightened and overextended, and had made decisions she would not have made if she had been thinking clearly. I had not believed it entirely, not after hearing her voice through the office door Thursday night, but I had kept the possibility alive the way you keep a small light on in a room you are not sure you want to enter. The footage had turned that light off. She had gone in alone. She had not called Derek first. She had not texted him to say she was heading over, had not waited for him to meet her there. She had taken the key from her own jacket pocket, which meant she had been carrying it with her, which meant she had planned this specific errand for a specific time when she could do it without him present. Whatever arrangement she and Derek had made with Raymond Voss, Claire had decided that the second payment was going to go through her hands and not his. I sat back down at the desk and opened the footage again. I watched it a second time, frame by frame this time, at the lowest playback speed the software allowed. I watched her reach for the key. I watched the particular angle of her shoulders, the way she moved through the doorway. I watched the tote bag leaving the frame heavier than it had arrived. Then I watched it a third time. By the third time, the anger had gone somewhere I could not immediately locate. It had not disappeared. I knew it was still in me the way a structural load is still present in a beam, even when the beam shows no outward sign of stress. But the surface of my thinking had gone very quiet and very clear. The specific clarity that came in my experience only when a problem had finally revealed its actual shape. I thought about Claire at 6 years old, sitting on the tall stool at my workbench, with her chin resting on her folded arms, watching me work. I thought about the afternoon she had drawn a cartoon engine on the back of a rejected schematic and taped it to the workshop door with a note that said, "Best engineer in the world." I had kept that drawing for 11 years, until it fell apart at the folds from being handled too many times. I had not told her that. I thought about Eleanor, who had always said that the hardest thing about loving difficult people was that the love did not go away just because the person became difficult. She had been talking about her own sister at the time, but she had looked at me in a way that suggested she thought it was a principle with broader applications. She had been right, as she usually was. I closed the laptop. I reached for my phone and sent a short message to Margaret Holt. Footage obtained single individual, positive ID, will send file this afternoon. Then I sent a second message to Frank. Call me when you have a minute. The phone rang 40 seconds later. She took it herself, I said, before Frank could speak. There was a brief pause on the other end. Claire. Yes. Another pause, longer this time. I heard him exhale slowly. All right, he said in the voice he used when he was setting something difficult, aside to deal with the practical question in front of him. What do you need? I need you to keep Sophie busy this evening, I said. Derek is having people over to my house tonight, apparently. I don't want her anywhere near it. Frank's voice sharpened. He's doing what? Having a party, I said. At my house. I'll explain the rest later. Right now, I just need to know Sophie is with you. A beat of silence, and then Frank let out a short, low sound that was not quite a laugh, but carried the same exhausted disbelief. Consider it done, he said. Walter. Yeah. Don't do anything tonight. I know, I said. I mean it. I know you do, I said. Neither will I. I ended the call and sat for a moment with the phone in both hands and the quiet hotel room around me, and the weight of what I had just watched pressing down on my chest, like a load I had agreed to carry and was not yet ready to put down. Then I opened the laptop again and began composing the email to Margaret Holt. Frank called back at 6:45 that evening, just as the sun was dropping behind the roofline of the building across from the hotel and painting the parking lot in long copper shadows. My source on the party situation is Sophie, he said, who texted me approximately 40 minutes ago from the upstairs bathroom, which appears to be the only room in your house where she can get a signal without her parents noticing. Derek has invited somewhere between 20 and 25 people. There is a sign in the front window. I had been pulling on my jacket when he called. I stopped. A sign. Sophie's description was, and I'm quoting directly here, a big white poster board that says, "Welcome to the Merritt House," in blue marker. Frank's voice was perfectly level, but I had known him long enough to hear the particular restraint in the tone of a man who had seen a great deal of human behavior in 30 years of legal practice, and had developed the capacity to describe even the most staggering of it without inflection. She also says they are using Eleanor's good dishes. My hand tightened around the phone until I could feel the edges of the case pressing into my palm. Eleanor's good dishes were a set of cream-colored stoneware she had ordered from a catalog the year we paid off the house, a small celebration she had allowed herself after 20 years of using whatever was practical. She had used them for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the occasional dinner party, washed them by hand and stored them wrapped in cloth in the cabinet above the refrigerator. I had not touched them since she died. Walter, Frank said. I'm here. Sophie is fine. She's eating leftover apple cake in my kitchen as of 10 minutes ago. She wanted me to tell you she's okay. I exhaled. Tell her I'll see her tomorrow. I ended the call, finished buttoning my jacket, and left the hotel. I did not go to the house. I had told Frank I would not, and I had meant it. And beyond the promise, there was the simple practical reality that walking into that party would hand Derek exactly the disruption he had been engineering toward a confrontation in front of witnesses that could be photographed and described and submitted as evidence of precisely the behavioral instability they had spent weeks building a narrative around. I was not going to give them that. Not tonight. Not ever if I could help it. Instead, I drove to the Balboa Peninsula. It was Frank who had called me that afternoon, 2 hours after our morning conversation, to tell me he had seen Claire's Lexus parked outside a coffee shop on the harbor side of the peninsula. He had recognized the car and slowed down, and through the window he had seen Claire sitting at a corner table, across from a man Frank did not recognize, a man in a dark jacket who was leaning forward over something spread open on the table between them. I found a parking spot on the street half a block from the coffee shop and cut the engine. Through the plate glass window, I could see the interior clearly enough. Warm light, round tables with wooden chairs, a chalkboard menu on the far wall, and in the corner, exactly where Frank had described Claire and Raymond Voss. I had never seen Voss in person before. He was somewhere in his mid-50s, lean and well-dressed in the deliberately understated way of people who worked in industries where money was serious and displays of it were considered poor form. He had the kind of stillness that came from years of sitting across tables from people who needed something from him. The stillness of a man who had learned that patience was leverage. He was looking down at the papers spread between them, one hand resting flat on the table, his expression professionally neutral. Claire was talking. I could not hear her through the glass, but I could read the shape of the conversation well enough. She was leaning slightly forward, her hands moving as she spoke, making the small, precise gestures she used when she was explaining something she wanted to be taken seriously. She looked composed and confident. She looked from 30 meters away through a coffee shop window, like a woman conducting a business meeting that was going entirely according to plan. Voss reached across the table and picked up the document package. He turned it over in his hands, opened the cover, and paged through the first several sheets slowly. His expression did not change in any dramatic way, but I watched him pause on one page, then go back to a previous one, and I knew that particular sequence. It was the sequence of someone who had found something that warranted a closer look. The fabricated version 5 schematics had been designed to reward exactly that kind of scrutiny with the appearance of depth. He set the package down. He said something. Claire nodded and said something back. Then Voss took out his phone, laid it on the table, and opened what appeared to be a banking application. My jaw tightened. Whatever the second installment amounted to, Claire was negotiating to receive it directly routed past Derek entirely. She had gone into my workshop alone that morning, taken what she believed was 7 years of my work, and was now sitting in a harborside coffee shop, arranging for the money to land in an account her husband did not know existed. I sat in the car and watched until they closed their folders and gathered their things. Claire tucked the document package into her tote bag and stood. They shook hands across the table, the brief, efficient handshake of a transaction completed to both parties' initial satisfaction. She walked out of the coffee shop and turned left toward the parking lot without looking in my direction. I sat in the dark car for another few minutes after she was gone, looking at the coffee shop window and the empty corner table and the chalkboard menu on the far wall, and I thought about what it meant that she had done this in the same harbor town where Eleanor and I had brought her as a child, where she had learned to sail in a borrowed dinghy the summer she was 12, where she had called me from a payphone at 16 after a date had gone wrong and needed a ride home and had cried the whole way back, and I had not said a single word because I had understood that sometimes what people needed was simply not to be alone with a thing. I started the car. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at the screen. An unknown number. I opened the message. Mr. Grayson, you should know that the documentation your daughter delivered tonight is not what Calder's engineering team will be expecting. I am not in a position to say more than that. But you should know. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it immediately to Margaret Holt with a single line, add this to the file. Unknown number, I'll explain Monday. I pulled out of the parking spot and drove back toward the hotel through streets that were quiet now, the Saturday evening traffic thinning out as the October night came down, cool and sharp off the water. Somewhere in the house on my street, 24 people were standing on my floors and eating off Eleanor's dishes and looking at a poster board sign that said, Merritt House, and they did not know that the man whose name was on the deed had been sitting in a car half a mile away watching and had seen enough. Tomorrow was Sunday. Monday the legal machinery would begin to move in earnest, and on the day my original flight was scheduled to land, I was going to go home. Sunday passed quietly on my end. I never learned who sent that text from the unknown number. Margaret's best guess when I mentioned it to her on Monday was that it had come from someone inside Calder's own engineering team, someone who had reviewed what Claire delivered and understood immediately that it was not current work. Someone with enough integrity to send a warning and enough self-preservation not to attach a name to it. I did not pursue it further. It had done what it needed to do. I spent the morning at the hotel desk going through the footage file one more time, then organizing every photograph, timestamp, and written note I had accumulated since Thursday night into a single folder that I sent to Margaret Holt by noon. She responded within the hour with a list of follow-up questions and a confirmation that the cease and desist letter to Calder Marine Systems was already drafted and waiting for my authorization to send. I told her to hold it for 2 more days. I wanted to be home when it landed. In the afternoon, I walked 6 blocks to a diner on the coast road and ate a bowl of clam chowder at the counter and read the newspaper the way I had not read a newspaper in years, slowly with no particular destination because there was nothing useful left for me to do until Tuesday, and I had learned a long time ago that the worst thing an engineer could do while waiting for a system to reveal itself was to start pulling on components before they were ready to move. Sophie called at 4:30. "The party ended at midnight," she said. She was speaking in the low, careful voice she used when she was somewhere she did not want to be overheard. "I stayed at Mr. Calloway's. Mom texted me this morning and said I could come back if I wanted." "Did you go back?" "No." A pause. "It doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like someone else's house." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and she stopped and I heard her take a careful breath to steady herself. "Is that a weird thing to say?" "No," I said. "It's an accurate thing to say." She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Grandpa, they've been fighting since last night, after everyone left. I could hear them through the wall." Another pause, longer this time. "It was bad." "What did you hear?" I asked carefully. "Dad was yelling about something to do with a payment," she said. And Mom kept saying she didn't know what he was talking about. But then she stopped saying that and started yelling back, and then... She stopped. I heard her swallow. "Dad said something about a casino. He said the word commerce, and then Mom started crying, but it wasn't sad crying. It was the kind of crying where you're also really angry and at the same time. You know that kind?" I knew that kind. "Then what?" I asked. "Then Dad said something I didn't hear, and Mom screamed at him. She actually screamed. She said, 'You told me Dad had agreed. You told me it was done.'" Sophie's voice dropped even lower. "And then she said, 'Where are we supposed to go?' Derek, where exactly are we supposed to go?" I set down my pen. I had been writing while she talked, the same instinct for documentation that had served me for 40 years. But some things did not need to be written down, because they were already written clearly enough in the structure of events. "Sophie," I said, "are you safe where you are right now?" "I'm at Mr. Calloway's," she said. "I went back this morning after Mom texted, but I only stayed for like an hour, and then I came back here. Mr. Calloway made grilled cheese." "Good," I said. "Stay there tonight." "Grandpa," her voice was very small, "when is this going to be over?" I looked out the hotel window at the strip of ocean, visible between 2 buildings, gray and flat in the afternoon light, and I thought about how to answer that in a way that was honest, without being more than a 15-year-old girl needed to carry. "Soon," I said. "I promise you, soon." After I hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time and thought about what Sophie had described. The picture that assembled itself from her account was not a complicated one. Derek had kept $15,000 from the initial Calder payment without telling Claire. Claire had taken the fabricated document package from my safe and delivered it to Voss privately, intending to receive the second installment directly in an account Derek did not know about. Derek had discovered at some point during or after the party that Voss was no longer responding to him with the same promptness he had shown in the early stages of the negotiation. He had confronted Claire, she had deflected until she couldn't, and somewhere in the collapse of that confrontation, Derek had revealed what he had done with the casino money, and Claire had understood for the first time that the apartment they no longer had a lease on was not coming back, and that the furniture that had filled it was gone, and that the money Derek had assured her would bridge the gap between leaving and settling in had been fed over the course of 14 months into the machines at Commerce Casino in Los Angeles. "Where are we supposed to go, Derek?" That was not a rhetorical question. That was a woman standing in a house that was not hers next to a man who had run out of answers, asking a question that neither of them could answer without admitting everything that had brought them to that room. I picked up my phone and called Frank. "I need a favor," I said when he picked up. "Tomorrow morning early, I need you to drive me to the airport and back." "You're not flying anywhere," Frank said. It was not a question. "No," I said, "but I need to arrive home like someone who just got off a plane. Luggage and all." A short silence. Then Frank was quiet for a moment, the specific quiet of a man who had spent 3 decades watching people build elaborate situations for themselves, and had long since learned that the most useful thing you could do was simply help them find a way out. "What time?" he said. "7," I said. "I'll explain everything in the car." "You'd better," he said. "I'll bring coffee." I spent Monday quietly, the last full day before the scheduled return, reviewing everything Margaret had sent me and going through my own notes one final time. She had confirmed that the patent filing was fully accelerated and that the cease and desist was ready to deploy the moment I gave the word. She had also, in a brief aside at the bottom of her Monday morning email, noted that she had made a few discreet inquiries regarding Dr. Philip Rohn, and that the situation there was, in her words, already quite fragile without any intervention from our side. I did not ask what that meant. I trusted that it meant what it needed to mean. That night, I packed my bag with the same clothes I had taken to San Francisco. Rumpled now, from living out of a suitcase for 10 days in a hotel 6 blocks from my own house. I set the alarm for 5:30. I lay in the dark with my hands folded on my chest and thought about Eleanor, who had always said that patience was not the absence of feeling. It was the decision to let the feeling exist without letting it drive. She had been a great deal smarter than I had ever adequately told her. Tuesday morning, Frank pulled up to the hotel at 7 o'clock with 2 cups of coffee from the gas station on Coast Highway and the patient expression of a man who had agreed to something moderately absurd and had decided to commit to it fully. I put my bag in the back seat and climbed in. "Ready," he said, handing me a cup. I wrapped both hands around the warm paper cup and looked out through the windshield at the familiar street, the pepper trees, the pale morning light coming off the ocean. "Let's go home," I said. Frank dropped me at the curb at 9:45 Tuesday morning with my rolling suitcase and the carry-on I had packed in San Francisco 10 days ago. He had kept the rolling suitcase at his place since Thursday night. I had asked him to hold it the first evening, when the only things I had taken from the house were the carry-on and a gold ribbon box of Swiss chocolate, and he had said nothing about it then and said nothing about it now. He just looked at me through the passenger window with the steady, unreadable expression he had probably used on witnesses for 30 years and said, "Call me when it's done." "I will," I said. He drove away. I stood on the sidewalk in front of my own house with my luggage at my feet and looked at the front door. The dark sedan was gone. Claire's Lexus was in the driveway. The poster board sign had been taken down from the front window, but I could see a faint rectangular smear on the glass where the tape had pulled at the surface. Someone had remembered to remove the sign and forgotten that removal leaves its own kind of evidence. I picked up my bag and walked to the front door and knocked. Footsteps. A pause that lasted exactly 1 beat too long. Then the door opened and Claire stood in the frame, and in the space of a single second, I watched her face move through surprise, calculation, and recovery before it arrived at warmth. She was fast. She had always been fast. "Dad!" Her voice broke open with what sounded like pure relief, and she stepped forward and put her arms around me, pressing her face briefly against my shoulder. "You're home. You look exhausted." I let her hold on. I set one hand lightly on her back, the way I had held her since she was small, and I looked over her shoulder at my living room. Someone had moved the couch 3 feet to the left. There was a charging cable on Eleanor's side table that did not belong to me. "Long flight," I said. Derek appeared from the kitchen doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel with the performance of a man who had been doing something completely ordinary just a moment ago. "Walter, how was San Francisco?" "Productive," I said, stepping inside and setting my bag down by the door. V9 cleared every threshold I set for it. "That's great." Derek's smile arrived slightly after his words, the way a translation lags behind the original language. "Really great news." I looked around the room slowly, the way I had been trained to look at a job site, reading what was present and what was absent. The couch 3 feet off its original position, the charging cable on Eleanor's side table, a half-empty coffee mug on the mantel shelf that I had not placed there. Small things. The kind of things that accumulate when people stop remembering they are guests. I asked about the furniture. Claire said she had been rearranging, trying to make things more comfortable while she was looking after the house. I asked about the boxes in the garage. Derek said they had been doing some early holiday storage, nothing permanent. I asked whether their apartment had been comfortable while they stayed here, whether the plumbing repair had gone smoothly in the end. "Everything's great," Claire said, and her eyes held mine with the specific steadiness of someone who had been practicing that steadiness for longer than this conversation. I nodded slowly the way I nodded, when a load calculation came back cleaner than I expected, and I was deciding whether to trust it. "Good," I said. "Then you won't mind sitting down for a few minutes. I have something I want to show you both." I did not raise my voice. I did not let my hands shake though they wanted to. I carried my bag to the dining table, set it down, and unzipped the front pocket with the same deliberate calm I used when I was opening a piece of equipment I already knew was going to tell me something I did not want to hear. Claire sat down across from me. Derek remained standing for a moment, then pulled out the chair beside her and sat, which told me that some part of him understood this was not a conversation he could manage from a standing position. I placed my phone on the table between us. I opened the first photograph. "This is the vehicle registered to Raymond Voss," I said, "parked in my driveway last Thursday evening, 4 hours before my flight was scheduled to land." Claire's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. A small movement, the kind you only catch if you have been watching a person's face for 38 years. Derek went very still. I moved to the next image. The workshop filing cabinet, the bound drawing sets with their binder clips turned the wrong way, right-facing, instead of left 3 of them, exactly as I had found them on Friday morning. Then the Wise Cam photographed from 3 angles its white casing, half hidden behind the dresser corner. Its lens pointed at the center of my bedroom. I watched Claire look at that photograph, and I watched her understand, in the way that people understand things they already know, when the thing is placed directly in front of them, that I had been inside the room before they expected me to be. Then I pressed play on the audio from the memory card. Derek's voice filled the dining room, compressed and slightly tinny through the phone speaker, but perfectly clear. Every word landed the way words land when a room has gone completely quiet around them. Touching Eleanor's things is the fastest trigger. Claire's own voice followed, calm and unhurried, the voice of a woman discussing a plan she had thought through carefully. "I've already told people he's been getting worse." The color left her face so completely and so fast that she reached for the edge of the table, with one hand her fingers finding the wood and gripping it. Derek's mouth opened. His throat worked like he was trying to swallow something that had lodged and would not move. I let the recording run to the end. I did not watch the phone. I watched them. When it finished, I set the phone face down on the table and looked at my daughter. She was still holding the edge of the table. Her knuckles had gone pale. She was looking at a point somewhere between the phone and her own hands, and she was breathing carefully, the measured breath of someone who is deciding what to say next and has not yet decided. "V9, I said, turning to Derek. "What made you think that name?" Derek blinked. His eyes moved to Claire, and then back to me, and then to a point on the wall behind my head. Claire mentioned it. I must have heard it from her at some point. I never said that name to you," I said. "Not once. Not to either of you. Not in any conversation we have ever had. Not in writing. Not on a call." The room went airless. The kind of airless that has nothing to do with ventilation and everything to do with what happens when the last exit from a situation closes and everyone in the room knows it. Derek looked at Claire. It was the look of a man reaching for something that was no longer there. Claire looked at me. Her hand was still flat on the edge of the table. Her face had passed through everything it had to pass through: the surprise, the calculation, the attempt at recovery, and what was left now was something quieter and harder to look at. Not anger, not defiance. The particular expression of someone who has been found out so completely that there is no version of the next sentence that helps. I looked back at my daughter, and I waited. My hands were flat on the table. My breathing was even. The morning light came through the dining room window, the way it always had, falling across the table, at the same angle it had fallen for 30 years. And the house around me was quiet, and I did not need to say another word. I had said enough. The rest was theirs to carry. Claire moved first. She pulled her hand back from the edge of the table and straightened in her chair and said, "Dad, I can explain all of this," in the voice she had used since childhood, when she was caught at something and needed time to build a story. Then she turned to Derek and said, "This was his idea, from the beginning, all of it." Derek's chair scraped back so hard it left a mark on my floor. He was on his feet before the sound finished echoing. "Excuse me!" His voice came out strangled and high, nothing like the controlled tone he had used with Voss. "Who gave me the workshop key? Who told me the safe combination? Who called Calder in the first place and said her father had something worth buying?" Claire's face went rigid. "You are not putting this on me. I'm putting it exactly where it belongs." Derek's finger came down on the table hard enough to rattle the phone. "You handed me the key. You gave me the code. You sat in that car outside this house and told me your father would never notice because he was too deep in his workshop to pay attention to anything else. And you believed that, Claire said, her voice dropping to something cold and precise, because you wanted to believe it, because you needed the money, because you had already lost God knows how much at that casino, and you needed someone to hand you a way out. The word casino landed in the room like something thrown. Derek's neck went red from the collar up. Don't, he said. Commerce Casino. Claire said it slowly, each syllable deliberate. 14 months, Derek. 14 months of weekends you told me were client dinners and industry events. How much? That is not... How much? Derek's jaw worked. He looked at the table, at the phone, at the wall behind my head, at every surface in the room, except his wife's face. Enough, he finally said, the word dropping out of him like something he had been holding for a long time and could no longer keep the grip on. Claire let out a breath that was not quite a laugh and not quite a sob, but somewhere between the two, a sound I had never heard from her before. Her hands came up and pressed flat against the sides of her face. Fingers splayed as though she was physically trying to hold her expression together. We don't have an apartment, she said more to herself than to either of us. You actually let the lease go. You told me your father had agreed. I told you we were working on it. Her hands came down and hit the table open-palmed, the crack of it sharp in the quiet room. Working on it, Derek, that is not the same thing as done. You said, and you sold the furniture? Her voice broke on the last word, cracked clean through, and she pressed her lips together hard, and her eyes filled, and she blinked fast against it, refusing to let it spill in front of me. Her chin was shaking with the effort. You sold Eleanor's. You sold the dining set that came from her mother's house, Derek. Do you understand what you... Stop. Derek's voice came out wrecked. Just stop. I had been sitting with my hands flat on the table through all of it, watching them dismantle 10 years of shared choices in under 4 minutes. I had not moved. I had not interjected. I had not needed to. Now I said, enough. Both of them stopped, turned, looked at me as though they had briefly forgotten I was in the room, which perhaps they had. I reached into my bag and took out the folder Margaret Holt had prepared. I set it on the table and opened it to the first page. The file Claire took from my safe, I said, contains load test configurations from versions 5 and 6, approaches I tested and rejected because they produced the exact resonant vibration that made those versions commercially unviable. I let that sit for a moment. What you gave Raymond Voss was 6 years of dead ends. Derek stared at the folder. The color that had flooded his neck drained back out again. All the real version 9 documentation, I continued, has been in the possession of my intellectual property attorney since Friday. The patent filing was accelerated this morning. Calder Marine received a cease and desist letter from her office at 8 a.m. today. I looked at Derek. Whatever arrangement you made with Voss, you made it for something that cannot be delivered, and whatever money changed hands in that arrangement cannot be recovered through any court, because the transaction itself was illegal from the first conversation. Derek sat down. Not the way people sit when they choose to, the way they sit when their legs stop working. Claire looked at me. Her eyes were wet and her face was very still, and she said nothing because there was nothing left to say that would change the shape of what was on the table in front of all three of us. I closed the folder. For a moment, the room held only the sound of the October morning. Outside, a car passing on the street, a bird somewhere in the fig tree at the back fence, the ordinary, unremarkable sounds of a Tuesday that had no idea what was happening inside this house. Then I looked at my daughter, and then at the man she had married, and I took the particular slow breath that I had learned over 40 years of delivering findings that could not be softened was the only honest way to begin what had to be said next. You have 72 hours, I said. I want everything out of this house. Neither of them spoke. Derek's hands lay open on the table in front of him, the hands of a man who had reached for something and come back with nothing. Claire's chin was still trembling with the effort of holding herself together, and she was looking at me the way people look at a door they know is closing and cannot stop. I picked up my phone. I picked up the folder. I stood. 72 hours. I said again quietly, because some things only needed to be said once to be true, and some things needed to be said twice to be believed. Starting now. I walked out of the dining room and did not look back because the decision had been made and documented and delivered, and there was nothing left in that room that required my presence. The front door closed behind me with a sound that was neither loud nor soft, just final. Margaret Holt had sent the cease and desist letter to Calder Marine Systems at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning, while I was still sitting in Frank's car outside the hotel with a gas station coffee going cold in my hands. By Thursday afternoon, she forwarded me their response. It was 4 paragraphs long and written in the careful distancing language of a company that had just discovered it was standing very close to something it did not want to be associated with. Calder's legal team confirmed they had received no proprietary documentation meeting the description in the letter. They confirmed that Raymond Voss had acted as an independent contractor without authorization from the company's executive leadership. They confirmed that any materials inadvertently received had been destroyed. They expressed their commitment to intellectual property protections and their willingness to cooperate fully with any ongoing inquiry. I read it twice, then called Margaret. "They move fast," I said. "They always do when the exposure is clear," she said. "Voss is on his own now. Calder has cut him loose completely." "And Derek?" "Voss contacted Derek yesterday evening," she said. "Demanded return of the advance payment. Derek doesn't have it." She paused. "There's nothing Voss can do about that through legal channels because any claim he filed would require him to disclose the nature of the transaction. He won't do that. But Derek is going to be living with that pressure for a long time." I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat in the hotel room and thought about Raymond Voss sitting in some Los Angeles office looking at a deal that had collapsed, and in advance he would never recover, and felt almost nothing about it. He had known what he was buying. He had chosen to buy it anyway. The 72 hours ended on Friday morning. Frank came with me. Margaret had advised that I serve the written notice formally, with a witness present to ensure that no subsequent claim could be made about the circumstances of their departure. Frank stood in my front hallway with his hands in his jacket pockets and said nothing because nothing needed to be said. Claire carried boxes. Derek carried boxes. They worked without speaking to each other, which told me more about the state of their marriage than anything I had witnessed at the dining table 3 days earlier. The silver Lexus made 4 trips. Each time it pulled out of the driveway and came back, there was less of them in my house and more of my house returning to itself. On the 3rd trip, Claire stopped in the hallway and looked at me. Her eyes were dry. She had the look of someone who had finished crying not because the grief was gone, but because the body runs out of resources for it. "The locksmith is coming at noon," I said. She nodded. She picked up the last box and carried it out. At 11:58, she set the house key on the kitchen counter, without a word, which was not silence but the specific language of someone who understood that words had stopped being useful. Derek put the workshop key beside it. Derek held the door open. Claire walked through it first, without a word to him. I watched the Lexus back out of the driveway for the last time and turn left toward the main road. The locksmith arrived 2 minutes later. While he worked, I called Margaret about Dr. Rohn. She had already sent a letter to his clinic in Irvine outlining the ethical implications of providing a preliminary cognitive assessment for a patient he had never examined without that patient's knowledge or consent in exchange for financial compensation. The California Medical Board, the letter noted, took a particular interest in exactly this kind of arrangement. "Did he respond?" I asked. "Within 4 hours," Margaret said. "He's withdrawn from any involvement, completely." I thanked her and hung up. The locksmith finished at 12:40 and handed me 2 new sets of keys, clean and bright, in my palm. I locked the front door, unlocked it, locked it again. The mechanism was smooth and precise, the way new locks always were before years of use softened them. I put 1 set in my pocket. I put the other set on the kitchen counter where the old keys had been. Then I went out through the back door, crossed the covered walkway, and unlocked my workshop. The smell of machine oil and aluminum shavings and warm concrete met me at the threshold, the same smell it had always been. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, my hand on the frame, looking at the filing cabinet and the workbench and the draft table and the shelves of components going back 15 years. Everything was exactly where I had left it. I went inside and closed the door behind me. Frank told me they were at a motel in Costa Mesa. He had driven past it by accident, he said, on the way back from a dentist appointment, the kind of place that rented by the week too, stories of exterior corridors and a vending machine by the ice maker, and a parking lot that smelled like asphalt and salt air. Claire's Lexus was in spot 14. He had not stopped. He had called me instead. I thanked him and did not drive past it myself. There was nothing useful I could learn from looking at a motel parking lot that I did not already know. Claire and Derek were somewhere in that building, in a room smaller than my workshop, with no apartment to return to, and no plan that had survived contact with reality. Derek was fielding calls from Voss that he could not answer and would not be able to answer because the money Voss wanted back had gone to Commerce Casino in installments over 14 months and was not coming back from there either. I did not feel satisfaction about any of this. I want to be clear about that. What I felt was closer to the particular exhaustion that comes after a long structural inspection when you have found everything you were afraid of finding and now have to decide what to do about it. A week after the 72 hours ended, Claire called. Her voice was careful and flat, the voice of someone who had rehearsed what they were going to say and was trying to stay on script. She asked if she could see me. She said she wanted to talk. She did not say Derek's name, which told me everything I needed to know about the current state of that situation. We met at a small coffee shop 4 blocks from my house, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls and a counter that smelled like dark roast and cinnamon. I arrived first. I ordered black coffee and sat at a table by the window and watched the street until I saw her come through the door. She looked like someone who had not slept properly in 10 days, which was accurate. The careful presentation she had maintained through all of it, the warm voice, the assembled smile. The performance of a daughter who was simply concerned about her father had come apart somewhere in the previous week, and what was left underneath was a woman in her late 30s sitting across from her father in a coffee shop with shadows under her eyes, and her hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only warm thing available. She talked for a long time, about Derek mostly, about the debts she had not known the full extent of until everything collapsed, about the apartment lease she had believed he had handled, about the months of watching him disappear on weekends and accepting explanations. She had known somewhere beneath the surface of the knowing were not quite right. I listened. I did not interrupt. I had learned a long time ago that the most important thing you could give someone in that particular kind of pain was the space to say it without being redirected. When she finally stopped, she looked at me across the table with her chin trembling and her eyes bright and said, "Dad, I need you to know that I understood what we were doing was wrong. I knew. I told myself it was going to help the family. But I knew." The trembling in her chin spread to her shoulders, and she pressed one hand over her mouth, and her eyes filled completely and spilled over. And she sat there in that coffee shop with tears running down her face and did not look away from me, which was the bravest thing I had seen her do in years. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "I know you knew," I said. She let out a sound that was partly a sob and partly a breath, and gripped my hand hard, her fingers lacing through mine the way they had when she was small and frightened of something she could not name. We sat like that for a while, her hand in mine, the coffee going cold between us, the street moving past the window outside. Then I said, "I'm not cutting you out of my life, Claire, but I'm also not pretending this didn't happen." I looked at her steadily. "When you're ready to have an honest conversation, not an explanation, not a justification. An honest conversation, I'll be here." She nodded. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and straightened in her chair and took a slow breath. "Is Sophie okay?" she asked. "Sophie is fine," I said. "She always has been." We said goodbye on the sidewalk outside. She walked toward the parking lot and I walked back toward my street, and I did not turn around to watch her go because that was not the kind of moment that needed to be prolonged. Some things you simply let finish. I walked home with my hands in my jacket pockets and the October air moving in off the ocean, cool and sharp, and I thought about what Eleanor had said about love and trust being different things. You could hold both at the same time. You just had to be honest about which one you were working with. The house was quiet when I got back. The new lock turned cleanly under my key. I went inside and closed the door. 3 weeks after the 72 hours ended, my phone rang at 10:15 on a Tuesday morning, while I was in the workshop, replacing a worn bearing in the load transfer assembly. I had grease on my hands and a torque wrench balanced on the edge of the workbench, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I saw the area code, Long Beach. I set the wrench down and picked up. The man on the other end introduced himself as the engineering director at Hargrove Maritime, engineering a mid-sized private firm based at the port of Long Beach that designed and supplied heavy lift equipment for commercial shipping operations. I had sent them a preliminary specification package 4 months earlier before the San Francisco trip, before any of what had happened in the past 3 weeks. I had sent the same package to 6 other firms and had not followed up on any of them, because following up before the San Francisco results were confirmed had seemed premature. Hargrove had not forgotten. The engineering director said his team had reviewed the preliminary specs carefully and had discussed the load transfer architecture in several internal meetings. He said they believed the approach showed strong commercial potential for port crane stabilization under variable sea state conditions. He said they would like to arrange a formal site demonstration at their Long Beach facility within the next 6 weeks under standard NDA and evaluation agreement terms. He asked if I was available. I looked around my workshop, the filing cabinet, the draft table, the shelves of components, the workbench with the disassembled bearing sitting in a clean tray, and I said yes. Margaret Holt reviewed the evaluation agreement by end of day. She called me that evening with a short list of standard modifications, 2 clauses tightened and 1 removed entirely, and said the NDA was clean and straightforward. I signed both documents the following morning and sent them back before breakfast. Then I called Frank. He came over that afternoon with a thermos of coffee and let himself in through the back gate the way he had for 22 years. And I met him in the workshop doorway and handed him the letter of intent without explaining what it was. He read it standing in the covered walkway with the afternoon light coming through the gaps in the lattice overhead, and when he finished, he handed it back and looked at me over the top of his reading glasses. "Hargrove," he said. "They've been at the Port of Long Beach for 30 years, I said. "Private firm, serious people, no intermediaries." Frank nodded slowly. He took the thermos from under his arm and unscrewed the cap and poured 2 cups into the collapsible mugs he always brought when he came over, a habit left over from years of court days, when coffee from a proper cup had not always been available. He handed me one. "You sent them the preliminary specs before all of this started," he said. 4 months ago?" I said. "Before San Francisco, before any of it." He looked at the letter again, then back at me. "So, while they were going through your files," he said, "the thing they were actually trying to steal was already in motion somewhere else entirely." I had not thought about it in exactly those terms before, but he was right. The real V9 deal had been moving quietly through its own channels the entire time. Claire and Derek were taking photographs of rejected schematics and meeting with intermediaries in harborside coffee shops. The machinery of a legitimate transaction had been running in the background, invisible to everyone who was looking in the wrong direction. "Apparently," I said. Frank raised his collapsible mug slightly, the minimal gesture of a man who did not make a habit of ceremony. I raised mine back. We drank our coffee in the doorway of the workshop, while the afternoon light moved across the yard, and neither of us felt the need to say anything more about it, because some things did not need elaboration to be understood. After Frank left, I went back inside and placed the letter of intent on the workbench beside the photograph of Eleanor that I kept there, the one from the summer we drove up the coast to Big Sur, and she had stood on a cliff with the wind pulling her hair sideways and laughed at something I had said that I could no longer remember. I had taken the photograph without telling her. She had found it months later in a box of prints and asked me why I had kept it, and I had told her, "Because you look like yourself." She had looked at me for a long moment, and then she had said, "That might be the nicest thing you have ever said to me, Walter." I sat down at the workbench and looked at the photograph and the letter of intent side by side, and I thought that she would have had something quiet and precise to say about all of this the way she always did. She would not have said, "I told you so." She was never interested in being right. She was interested in what came next. I picked up the torque wrench and went back to work. Sophie texted me on a Saturday morning with 3 words. "Are you home?" I was in the workshop, as I usually was on Saturday mornings, working through the pre-demonstration checklist for the Hargrove site visit. I typed back yes and set the phone face down on the workbench and went back to the checklist. 12 minutes later, she texted again. "Don't make plans this afternoon. I have something for you." I looked at that message for a moment, then set the phone back down. Sophie had always had a gift for sentences that contained more information than they appeared, to a quality she had inherited from Eleanor, who could communicate an entire position on a subject with the precise placement of 3 words. She arrived at 2 o'clock, coming around through the side gate the way she always did, backpack over one shoulder, her hair pulled back in the practical ponytail she wore when she was planning to do something that required concentration. Frank was with her. He gave me a brief nod when he saw me in the workshop doorway and said, "We need about 45 minutes. Go back inside and stay there." I looked at him. He looked back at me with the expression of a man who had made a decision and was not entertaining discussion. 45 minutes was a specific amount of time, not a rough estimate, which meant they had planned this. "All right," I said. I went inside through the back door and sat at the kitchen table with my checklist and a cup of coffee and listened to the sounds from upstairs. Footsteps moving back and forth across the floor above me, the soft scrape of furniture being shifted, Frank's voice once low and brief and Sophie answering, a drawer opening, the particular creak of the closet door on the far wall of the master bedroom, the one I had been meaning to oil for 3 years. I did not go upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table and drank my coffee and looked at my checklist without reading it and waited. At 2:47, Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs. I stood up from the kitchen table and walked to the bottom of the staircase and looked up at her. She was standing on the landing with one hand on the banister, slightly out of breath, a smear of dust on her left forearm, and she had positioned herself in front of the hallway in the particular way that blocked the view of the corridor behind her. My chest tightened before I understood why. Then I understood why. "Grandpa," she said, "don't go up." The words hit me somewhere I had not been expecting. Not in the chest this time. Deeper than that. She was standing in the same position she had stood in 5 weeks ago. One hand on the same banister, the same hallway behind her, and she was saying the same 4 words. And my body remembered the first time before my mind caught up with the difference. She saw my face, and her own face broke into a wide, unguarded grin, the kind she had not been able to manage for several weeks, and she said, "It's not like last time, I promise." I let out a breath. "You're sure?" 100%. She stepped back and gestured toward the hallway. "Come up, but slowly. I want to see your face." I climbed the stairs. The door to the master bedroom was open. I stepped into the doorway and stopped. Eleanor's reading chair was back in the corner, by the window, positioned at the angle she had always preferred, turned slightly toward the light, so that a person sitting in it could see both the room and the garden below without turning their head. The green velvet was a little worn on the right armrest, the same as it had always been, and someone had set a small folded blanket over the back of it, the cream-colored one Eleanor had kept on the chair through every winter I could remember. The wedding photograph was back on the wall above the dresser. The Oregon Coast watercolor was beside it, rehung at the same height it had always been, which meant Frank had used a level because he was constitutionally incapable of hanging anything without one. The album of family photographs stood upright on the shelf where it belonged. And on the small table beside the bed, the nightstand that had been returned to its proper position against the wall. There was a framed photograph I did not immediately recognize as out of place because it had always belonged in this room, and then I looked more carefully and understood that it had not always been on that table. It was Eleanor holding Claire. Claire was perhaps 4 years old, sitting in Eleanor's lap in the backyard of a house we had rented before we bought this one. Squinting into the summer light, with both hands wrapped around an ice cream cone that was melting faster than she could manage it. Eleanor was looking down at her with an expression I had not seen in a photograph before, a particular kind of absorbed delight, as though the small person in her lap was the most interesting thing she had ever been given the chance to study up close. I had not known this photograph existed. "Where did you find this?" I asked. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Sophie appeared beside me in the doorway. "It was in the box," she said. "The one they packed from in here." She paused. "I took it out before they could take it away. I kept it in my backpack. I didn't know if it was okay to put it there, but it felt like it belonged in this room." My throat closed completely. I pressed my lips together and breathed through my nose and looked at the photograph and the chair and the watercolor and the album and all the accumulated evidence of a life that had been lived in this room for 30 years, and I thought that Sophie was 15 years old and had carried a photograph in her school backpack for 5 weeks because she knew it belonged somewhere, and she was not going to let it disappear. I turned to her. She was watching me with an expression caught between hope and uncertainty, trying to read whether she had done it right. "Come here," I said. She crossed the room, and I put my arms around her, and she pressed her face against my shoulder, the way she had when she was small, and her arms came up and held on tight, and she made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob, and said into my jacket, I didn't know if I put everything back exactly right. I held on. "This is more than enough," I said. "This is exactly right." We stayed like that for a while, the two of us in the doorway of Eleanor's room, the afternoon light coming through the window and falling across the green velvet chair, and I could hear Frank moving quietly somewhere downstairs, giving us the room the way he always knew to do. Sophie and Frank left at 4:30. Frank shook my hand at the back gate, which he did not always do, and I understood that it was his way of marking the occasion, without making a production of it. Sophie hugged me twice before she got into his car the second time, tighter than the first. And she said into my shoulder, "Call me when the Hargrove thing happens. I want to know how it goes." "You'll be the first," I said. I watched the car until it turned at the corner. Then I went back inside. The house was quiet in a way it had not been quiet for a long time. Not the wrong kind of quiet, the kind I had walked into 5 weeks ago when the rooms felt occupied by the wrong people and the air carried someone else's air freshener. This was the quiet of a house that was simply resting the way a structure settles at the end of a day when the load has been removed and the joints can breathe. I went upstairs and stood in the doorway of Eleanor's room for a moment. The afternoon light had shifted while Sophie and Frank were working, and now it came in low and amber through the window, falling directly across the green velvet chair and warming the worn armrest to the color of old honey. The wedding photograph caught the light from one corner. The Oregon Coast watercolor held the softer tones of the room. I did not go in. I stood in the doorway and looked for a long moment, the way you look at something you want to remember accurately, and then I went back downstairs and out to the workshop. The workbench was where I had left it. The pre-demonstration checklist was still open on the corner of the draft table. The disassembled bearing I had been working on that morning sat in its clean tray waiting to be finished. I sat down on the stool and picked up the torque wrench and held it in both hands without immediately using it, looking at the components spread in front of me. I thought about what it had cost. Not in the legal sense. Margaret had that handled and the costs there were finite and recoverable. I meant the other kind of cost, the kind that does not appear in any accounting. The kind that accumulates in the space between what you believed about a person and what they turned out to be capable of when they needed something badly enough. Claire and Derek had come into my house while I was away and gone through everything I had built and planned to take what they needed and leave me with a version of myself that other people would not trust. They had moved Eleanor's chair. They had taken her photographs off the walls. They had pointed a camera at the empty space where her things had been and waited for me to walk into it. They had miscalculated in the specific way that people miscalculate when they know a great deal about someone's habits and very little about their character. They knew I kept my notebook in the bottom drawer. They knew the safe combination. They knew which battered piece of furniture would hit me hardest. But they had not accounted for the possibility that the man they were planning this around had spent 40 years learning to read systems under stress, and that what looked like patience from the outside was something considerably more active on the inside. V1 had failed in 3 months. V2 had cracked under load. V3 was too heavy. V4 was uneconomical. V5 improved things. V6 was the first version I genuinely believed in, and it still vibrated at high load. 7 iterations over 7 years, each one built from the failure of the one, before each failure telling me something I could not have known without it. You could not steal that process by photographing the result. The result was just paper. The process was everything. Sophie had asked me that afternoon, sitting on the edge of Eleanor's bed with her hands in her lap, whether it had been worth it, all those years in the workshop. I had told her yes without hesitation, and I had meant it. But sitting alone at the workbench in the quiet of the late afternoon, I understood that the answer was more specific than that. It had been worth it because of what the work itself had required of me, the discipline of staying with a problem through 8 failed versions, the habit of recording every failure precisely so that the next attempt could begin from an honest starting point, the understanding built over decades that the gap between what you expect a system to do and what it actually does is not a setback, it is information. That was what had saved me 5 weeks ago. Not anger, not confrontation. The same discipline I had applied to every failed bearing and every cracked joint and every iteration that had not worked the way I had designed it to. I had stopped at the bottom of my own staircase and listened before I acted because 40 years of engineering had trained me to gather data before drawing conclusions, and that training had held when everything else was telling me to move. I set down the torque wrench and picked up the small framed photograph I kept on the corner of the workbench. Eleanor at Big Sur Wind pulling her hair sideways, laughing at something I had said that I still could not remember. Behind her, the Pacific moved in long gray swells toward the horizon, enormous and indifferent and beautiful. She had always said I was too patient. She had said it with affection mostly, but she had meant it as a real observation. She thought I waited too long to say difficult things, that I let situations develop past the point where a word earlier would have been simpler than a correction later. She had been right as a general matter, but patience was not what had served me these past 5 weeks. What had served me was something closer to what she had also said once on a different occasion when I had been frustrated with a version that would not behave the way I had calculated it should. She had looked at the workbench and then at me and said, "The design is not wrong, Walter. You just haven't given it enough time to show you what it needs." I had thought she was talking about the engineering. I looked around the workshop, the filing cabinet, the draft table, the shelves, the disassembled bearing, waiting in its clean tray, and I thought about the letter of intent on the workbench beside her photograph and the cease and desist response from Calder and Sophie's arms tight around my shoulders 45 minutes ago, and the green velvet chair back in its corner upstairs turned toward the light. Then I picked up the torque wrench, found the bearing, and finished the work. Sophie called on a Wednesday morning, 4 days after she and Frank had put Eleanor's room back together. I was at the kitchen table with my second cup of coffee and the Hargrove pre-demonstration documentation spread across the surface when my phone lit up with her name. I picked up on the first ring. "Hey," she said. Her voice had the particular texture of someone who had been thinking about something for a long time before deciding to say it out loud. "Hey," I said. "What's going on?" A pause. I heard her shift the soft sound of a chair or a bed adjusting under her weight. She was at school, probably a free period, probably sitting somewhere she could talk without being overheard. "Mom called me last night," she said. I set down my coffee cup and gave the documentation in front of me my full attention in reverse, which is to say I stopped looking at it entirely. "What did she say?" "She wants to see me." Sophie stopped. "She said she missed me. She said she was sorry for what happened and that she wanted to explain things." Another pause. "She said she understood if I needed time, but she hoped I would think about it." I waited because Sophie had not asked me a question yet, and I was not going to answer one she had not asked. "I don't know what to do," she finally said, and her voice cracked slightly on the last word, the particular crack of someone who had been holding a feeling at arm's length and had just let it get a little closer. "I keep thinking about all the things I heard, what they were planning, the camera, what they said about you." She took an unsteady breath. "And then I think about she's still my mom. She's still the person who drove me to swim practice at 5:30 in the morning for 3 years. She's still the one who stayed up all night with me when I had that terrible flu in 7th grade. Both of those things are true," I said. "I know." Her voice went small. "I know they are. I just don't know how to hold both of them at the same time." I looked out the kitchen window at the yard, at the covered walkway leading to the workshop, at the fig tree in the corner that Eleanor had planted the second summer we lived here, and that still produced more fruit than I knew what to do with every September. "Sophie," I said, "I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to understand that I'm not telling you what to decide. That part is yours." "Okay," she said quietly. "Your mother did something that was clearly and completely wrong. That's not a complicated statement, and I'm not going to soften it for you, because you're old enough to know the difference between a mistake and a choice, and what happened was a choice." I paused. "And she is still your mother. Those two things don't cancel each other out. They exist at the same time, and learning to carry both of them without letting either one disappear is one of the harder things people have to figure out how to do." Sophie was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier. "Did you figure it out with her?" "I'm working on it," I said, which was honest. "What does that look like?" I thought about it, about the coffee shop 4 blocks away, about Claire's hands around the mug and her eyes dry because the body runs out of resources eventually, about what I had said and what she had not been able to answer, and the handshake we had not quite managed on the sidewalk outside. "It looks like not closing the door," I said, "and not pretending it's fully open either, somewhere in between for now, and checking in on where it is every so often." Sophie let out a long, slow breath. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," I said. "Most honest things are." She laughed at that, a real laugh short, and surprised the kind that comes out when something lands truer than expected. I heard the tension in her voice ease by a fraction, the particular release of someone who had been carrying a weight and had just been given permission to set it down for a moment without being told what to pick up next. "I think I'm going to call her back," Sophie said. "Not today, maybe next week. I'm not ready today." "That sounds right," I said. "Will you be okay with that?" The question caught me somewhere I had not been braced for. She was 15 years old, and she was asking whether I would be okay with her choosing to repair a relationship with the person who had tried to dismantle mine. The fact that she was asking told me more about who she was than anything she could have said directly. "Sophie," I said, "your relationship with your mother has nothing to do with what happened between her and me. Those are two separate things. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, including me." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Grandma Eleanor would have said something like that." My throat tightened. "Probably in better words," I said. She laughed again, softer this time. "I don't know about that." A pause. "Grandpa?" "Yeah. Thank you for not telling me what to do." "I thank you," I said, "for asking." After she hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with the Hargrove documentation still spread in front of me, and my coffee gone fully cold, and the morning light moving across the floor in the slow way it moved in October, when the angle of the sun had shifted enough to change where everything landed. I thought about Sophie at 15, carrying a photograph in her backpack, answering a question I had not asked, and now calling to ask permission she did not need for a decision that was entirely her own. Eleanor had always said that the measure of whether you had done something right with a child was not whether they came to you with their answers, it was whether they came to you with their questions. By that measure, I thought we had done something right. I gathered the Hargrove documentation into a neat stack, clipped it together, and set it aside. Then I picked up my coffee cup, found it cold, and went to make a fresh one. The demonstration was scheduled for a Tuesday in late November, 6 weeks after the letter of intent had arrived, and 4 months after I had first sent Hargrove the preliminary specifications. I drove down to Long Beach alone. Frank had offered to come. Sophie had texted the night before, "Good luck tomorrow, call me after," and I had written back that I would. I had packed the V9 assembly the previous afternoon in the same careful sequence I always used, each component wrapped and positioned in the foam-lined case I had built for it 3 years ago, when the design had stabilized enough to warrant a dedicated transport solution. I had driven the route on a map twice before I left, not because I did not know the way to the port of Long Beach, but because I had learned a long time ago that preparation was not a sign of anxiety. It was a sign of respect for the work. The Hargrove facility was on the south side of the port, a series of gray industrial buildings set back from the water behind a security gate and a parking area that smelled like diesel and salt. The engineering director met me at the entrance, a compact man in his mid-50s named Gerald, who had the handshake of someone who had spent his career working with his hands before he started managing people who did. He introduced me to 3 members of his technical team, and we walked together through the facility to the demonstration bay. The bay was high-ceilinged and serious, the kind of space that had been designed for the specific purpose of evaluating things under real conditions rather than controlled ones. There was a mobile crane assembly mounted on a test platform rigged for variable load simulation, with sensors along the primary joints that would measure force distribution and deflection in real time. Gerald's team had prepared it themselves based on the specifications I had sent them. They had done it correctly. I installed V9 in 40 minutes. I had installed it hundreds of times in the workshop, in conditions ranging from good lighting and adequate temperature to a February evening when the heater had quit, and I had worked in a wool hat and fingerless gloves because the alternative was losing the calibration sequence I had been running for 11 days. 40 minutes was slower than my best time and faster than my average, which seemed about right for a first installation in a new environment with 3 engineers watching. Gerald ran the load sequence from a panel on the far wall. The crane assembly took the first load increment without comment, the joints settling into position the way they were supposed to, the sensors returning numbers that matched the San Francisco results within the margin I had projected. The second increment was heavier. The third was at the upper threshold of the commercial operating range. V9 did not vibrate. It had vibrated at this load in version 6. I had spent 14 months understanding why, and another 8 months building the answer into the architecture of version 7, and then 18 more months refining that answer through versions 8 and 9. 3.5 years of work, accumulated failure by failure, to arrive at a set of joints that could take a load at the upper threshold of commercial operation and hold it without resonance. The sensors confirmed it. Gerald's technical lead read the numbers off a tablet and looked up at me with the expression of someone who had been professionally skeptical and had just been given a reason to revise that position. "No harmonic deviation at threshold," he said. "No," I said. Gerald looked at the assembly for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "How long did this take you?" 7 years, I said, and about 40 years before that learning what to pay attention to. He nodded slowly, the nod of an engineer who understood that some answers could not be shortened without losing something essential. "We'll want to run the full protocol," he said. 3 days of sequential load testing, full data capture. If the numbers hold, we'll be talking to our legal team about next steps. "That's what I'm here for," I said. We ran the first day of the protocol that afternoon. I stayed in the bay for most of it, watching the sensors checking the joints at each interval, making notes in the current engineering notebook, not the black composition notebook that was gone, but its replacement, a new one. I had started the week after the 72 hours ended, the first entry dated and titled in the same permanent marker I had used for the previous one. The data was clean, cleaner than San Francisco because the Hargrove rig was newer and the sensor array was more precise, and the more precise your instruments, the more honestly your design speaks for itself. At 4:30, Gerald called a stop for the day and walked me back through the facility to the parking area. The sun was low over the water, throwing long copper light across the container ships anchored in the outer harbor, enormous and patient against the horizon. "Same time tomorrow," Gerald said. "Same time tomorrow," I said. I sat in the car for a few minutes before I started the engine, looking at the port through the windshield. The container ships. The cranes moving along their rails in the distance, deliberate and enormous. The water catching the last of the afternoon light. I thought about standing at the bottom of my staircase 5 weeks ago, shoes in my hand, listening through a wall to people discussing how to take apart everything I had spent 7 years building. I thought about the notebook in the bottom drawer, and the camera behind the dresser, and the binder clips facing the wrong direction. I thought about Sophie's hand on my wrist, and one word spoken barely above a breath. They had come into my house and taken what they could carry. They had not been able to carry the part that mattered. You could photograph a schematic. You could copy a load test table. You could even understand, if you were skilled enough, the principles behind a given design. But you could not photograph the morning I had sat in the workshop at 2 a.m., with a failed bearing in my hand, and worked backward from the failure until I understood something I had not understood the day before. You could not copy the specific knowledge that came from building something 8 times and watching it fail 8 different ways. You could not carry out the discipline of a person who had spent 40 years learning that the gap between what you expect and what actually happens is not an obstacle. It is the work. I took out my phone and called Sophie. She picked up on the second ring. "How did it go?" "Well," I said. "How well?" "Well enough that I'm coming back tomorrow," I said. "And the day after." She made a sound that was unmistakably the sound of a person trying not to cheer out loud in a place where cheering was not appropriate, which meant she was still at school. "Grandpa," she said in a voice pulled tight with the effort of containing something. "I know," I said. 7 years, she said. 7 years? I agreed. A short silence, the comfortable kind. Then Sophie said, "Go home, Grandpa. Get some sleep. You have to do it again tomorrow." I smiled. "Yes, I do," I said. I started the car and pulled out of the parking area and drove north through Long Beach toward the freeway, the sun dropping behind the buildings ahead of me, the port receding in the rearview mirror. The radio was off. The road was quiet in the particular way it was quiet at the end of a day when something you had been working toward for a long time had finally begun to arrive. I thought about Eleanor, who had always known that the hardest part of any long project was not the beginning and not the end. It was the middle, the part where the original enthusiasm had faded and the finish line was not yet visible, and the only thing keeping you going was the discipline of people who understood that the work itself was sufficient reason to continue. She had watched me live in that middle for 7 years. She had never once asked me when it would be finished. She had only ever asked whether I was still learning something. The answer every time had been yes, and it still was. Looking back at everything that happened, I keep coming back to one thought. I almost lost it all, not because I was careless, but because I trusted the wrong people with the right keys. This is a family story I never wanted to live, and if there is one thing I have learned at 68 years old, it is that the people who can hurt you most are the ones who already hold the door open. Love does not make someone trustworthy. It only makes the lesson more expensive when you find out the difference. You can love someone completely and still change the locks. I believe God put people like Sophie in our lives for exactly these moments. The ones where one quiet word from the right person gives you just enough time to think before you act. If I could give you one piece of advice from this family story, don't wait until someone is standing in your workshop with your life's work in a bag before you ask the harder questions. Don't be like me. I saw the signs and told myself they meant something else. They rarely do. My personal opinion, family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's cruelty because it uses your own love as the instrument. That is what makes it so difficult to see coming and so important to face clearly when it arrives. A good life is not built by avoiding hard moments. It is built by not flinching when they find you. If this family story stayed with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, and if you haven't already, subscribing to the channel takes 2 seconds and means more than you know. This has been a story about family betrayal and about what survives it. Thank you for staying until the end. The stories on this channel contain fictional elements constructed for the purpose of education and reflection. If this content is not for you, that is completely okay. Please feel free to explore other content that better fits what you are looking for today.